A black belt instructor chose the cleaner's daughter as the easy opponent for his demonstration, and seconds later, the entire academy fell so silent you could hear the lights hum. "Take it back." The words didn't come from Linda, the woman standing frozen with a mop in her hands, her cheeks burning red. They came from a 13-year-old girl in faded jeans and scuffed sneakers, standing in the doorway with a school backpack still hanging from one shoulder. Derek Stone, the black belt who owned the academy and who had, moments earlier, mocked her mother in front of a class of paying students, turned slowly toward the small voice with a grin already forming on his lips. "And what are you going to do about it, sweetheart?" "You can apologize," the girl said, her voice as flat and steady as still water. "Or you can find out." The academy went still. The students near the mirrors stopped stretching. A man in a blue belt lowered the water bottle he'd been lifting to his mouth. A 13-year-old in scuffed sneakers had just challenged a man who hadn't lost a match in 15 years. What happened in the next minute would be replayed in that room for the rest of their lives. This is the story of how a quiet girl carrying a secret heavier than any trophy walked onto the mat and rewrote everything. Everyone thought they knew, one breath at a time. Just before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. We love seeing how far these stories reach. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss tomorrow's special video. Now, let's jump back in. Enjoy the story. A quiet girl's promise to her grandfather was about to be broken. For 3 years, the truth about who she really was had stayed buried beneath chore lists and lunch money and a small apartment with a leaking faucet. But tonight, in front of a room full of strangers, that secret would be used to defend the one person who had never once asked her to fight. The scent of clean sweat and floor polish filled the Apex Martial Arts Academy. It was a place of discipline, a temple built to worship the art of controlled violence. On the far wall, framed photographs of past tournament champions stared down with stern, sun-hardened faces. Below them, a long shelf of trophies gleamed under the harsh white glare of the fluorescent lights, each one angled just so to catch the eye of anyone who walked through the front door. The hush of the late evening was usually a comfort to Linda Coleman. At 47, Linda moved with a quiet efficiency that made her almost invisible. For the past 4 months, she had been the academy's cleaner, the woman who came after the last class to scrub away the day. She arrived just as the final session was winding down, her gray uniform shirt blending into the shadows along the back wall. She would wait patiently for the students to gather their bags and leave before she began her work, transforming the room from a stage of grunts and slammed bodies back into a still, gleaming hall. She took pride in that work. The mats had never been so clean, the long wall of mirrors never so free of fingerprints and fog. But tonight was different. Tonight, the class had run long and Derek Stone was in a foul mood. Derek was 36 and he carried himself like a man who had never once been told no. He was broad through the shoulders and thick through the chest. His black belt nodded with the careful precision of a man who believed the knot itself proved something. He had built the Apex Academy from a rented strip mall unit into the busiest dojo in the county. And somewhere along the way, he had decided that the room and everyone in it belonged to him. He was a good technician. He was not a good man. And the difference between those two things had never cost him anything until tonight. His students had learned to read his moods the way sailors read a sky. When Derek smiled, you laughed. When Derek frowned, you found a corner of the mat and you drilled until he forgot you existed. He liked an audience, and he especially liked an audience when he had someone to make small. That evening, he had spent the last 20 minutes of class tearing into a teenage student named Daniel. Again, Derek had barked, as Daniel reset his stance for the 5th time. "You move like you're apologizing for being here. A real fighter commits. Are you a real fighter, or are you wasting my time?" Daniel, 18 and lean, with the watchful eyes of someone who noticed more than he said, had simply bowed his head. "Yes, sensei." Sorry, Sensei. He threw the combination again. It was clean. It was sharp. It didn't matter. Derek had already turned away, looking for a bigger reaction from the rest of the room. That was the pattern. Derek built himself up by knocking others down, and he always made sure there were witnesses. The cruelty was the point. A man like Derek needed others to feel small so he could keep feeling large. There was a name for it among the older students, though no one said it where Derek might hear. They called it the spotlight. When Derek wanted to feel like a master, he would pick a person, usually the youngest, the newest, the least able to push back, and he would turn the whole room into a courtroom with that person on trial. He'd order them to demonstrate a technique they hadn't learned yet, then dissect their failure for the others. He'd correct their stance with a hard tap of his foot against the inside of their ankle. He'd make them hold a horse stance until their thighs shook and their faces went white, lecturing all the while about discipline, about respect, about how the soft generation coming up couldn't handle a real dojo. The students who survived it learned to applaud quickly and loudly, because applause was the only thing that ended it. That night, the air inside the Apex Academy still carried the day's heat, the sour, sweet smell of dried sweat soaked into the foam beneath the mats, the sharp citrus bite of the cleaning solution Linda kept on her cart, the faint rubber scent of well-worn pads stacked by the wall. The fluorescent lights hummed their thin electric hum. Somewhere a fan ticked as it turned. And in that ordinary end-of-day quiet, Derek went looking for someone to make small, and his eyes had landed on the woman with the mop. The students filed out one by one, bowing at the edge of the mat the way they'd been taught. A quick dip of the head, the ritual re-ray that marked the boundary between the ordinary world and the floor where the art lived. Daniel lingered at the rack of equipment, slow to leave, the way he often was. He didn't like going home, and he liked even less leaving the room while Derek was still angry. Something about it felt wrong, like leaving a fire unattended. So Daniel was still there when Linda made her mistake. She had wheeled her cleaning cart along the edge of the mat, careful as always to keep her sneakers off the tatami. When one of the front wheels caught the corner of the trophy shelf space, the cart jerked. A stack of laminated rank certificates slid off the top, and as Linda lunged to catch them, her elbow clipped the lowest trophy on the shelf. It was not a large trophy. It was a small regional second-place award from years ago, the kind of thing that should have been in a box in a closet. But it tipped, teetered, and fell, striking the polished wood floor with a sharp, ringing crack. The little golden figure on top snapped off at the ankle and skidded across the floor. The sound was enormous in the quiet room. Linda froze. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh no, I'm so sorry, I'll fix it, Derek turned around very slowly. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Derek crossed the floor in 3 unhurried strides, the soles of his bare feet whispering against the mat. He bent, picked up the broken figurine and held it up to the light as though it were a fallen soldier. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. His voice was soft now, which was worse than shouting. "I'm so sorry, sir, I'll pay for it. This is a trophy I won when I was younger than you'll ever be again." He turned the broken thing over in his fingers. "And you, the help, just snapped it in half because you can't be bothered to watch where you're rolling your little cart." It was an accident. Linda's voice had shrunk to almost nothing. "Of course it was. Everything you do is an accident, isn't it?" Derek straightened, and now his voice rose so the whole room could hear it. So Daniel by the equipment rack could hear it. So the night janitor of his own kingdom would learn her place. "Tell me something. Do you have any idea how much it costs to keep this floor the way it should be kept? Do you understand the difference between a place like this and the kind of place a woman like you belongs in?" Linda stared at the floor. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." She looked up. Her chin trembled, but she held his gaze. "You scrub my floors?" Derek said, leaning in. "That's the closest you'll ever get to understanding what we do here. So here's an idea." He smiled, the cruelty surfacing fully now, delighted with itself. You want to make it up to me? Step on the mat, right now. Let's do a little demonstration. I'll go easy. I'll find the easiest opponent in the building. He spread his arms wide and laughed. Oh, wait. That's you! And that was the moment the front door opened and a small voice said, "Take it back!" The academy fell silent. Maya Coleman stood in the doorway, her backpack still slung over one shoulder, a half-eaten granola bar forgotten in her hand. She was 13, small for her age, with her mother's dark eyes and a stillness about her that didn't match the room. She had walked the 8 blocks from the bus stop to wait for her mom and walk home with her, the way she did most evenings. She had heard the last of it through the propped-open door. Derek's grin spread slowly. He looked at the girl, then at the cleaner, then back to the girl, and something delighted and ugly crossed his face. "And who is this?" "That's my daughter," Linda said quickly, stepping in front of the cart in front of Maya, putting her body between them out of pure instinct. "Maya, honey, go wait outside, please, Maya," Derek repeated, tasting it. "Maya, your mother broke something that matters to me. And she was just about to make it right. Weren't you, Linda?" "Leave her alone," Maya said. "Or what?" Derek turned fully toward the girl now, the way a cat turns towards something that has begun to move. "What are you going to do about it, sweetheart?" "You can apologize," Maya said, and her voice didn't shake, which was the strangest part of all. "Or you can find out." Until now, Maya had been just the invisible daughter of the invisible cleaner. Derek Stone had spent 15 years convinced that the floor he stood on was his and his alone. But what no one in that room knew, not Derek, not Daniel, not even the trophies staring down from the wall, was that the small girl in the doorway carried a secret heavier than any of them could lift. And now, standing between her mother and a man twice her size, she was about to set it down. There's a kind of quiet that fills a room right before something breaks. That quiet filled the Apex Academy now. Derek laughed first. It was a big, performed laugh, the laugh of a man playing to seats. "Did you hear that?" he said, throwing the question to the empty room, to Daniel, to the mirrors. "The cleaning lady's kid is going to teach me a lesson." He bent down so he was eye level with Maya, his knees popping. "Sweetheart, I've put grown men on the floor with one hand. I run the most respected academy in 3 counties. You? You're gonna walk back out that door and you're going to be quiet. And you're going to be grateful I don't charge your mother for the trophy." Maya didn't move. "Maya," Linda's voice cracked. "Please, let's just go. It's not worth it. None of it is worth it." And there it was. The thing that lived behind everything Linda did, the years of swallowing it, the years of being talked to like furniture, the years of saying it's not worth it because fighting back had never once made her life easier, only harder. Maya had watched her mother shrink herself into doorways and shadows her entire life, had watched her say sorry to people who should have been saying it to her. And something in the girl's chest had been pulling tighter every year, like a rope wound one more turn each time. Tonight, the rope reached its limit. "Mom," Maya said gently, without turning around. "It's okay." She slipped the backpack from her shoulder and set it down by the door. Carefully, the way you set down something you respect. Then she bent and untied her sneakers. First the left, then the right, and stepped out of them, lining them up neatly side by side against the wall. Daniel, by the equipment rack, felt the hair on his arms rise. He didn't know why. He only knew that the way the girl took off her shoes was wrong. It wasn't the careless kickoff of a kid, it was deliberate. It was a ritual. It was the way someone removes their shoes when they have done it 1,000 times before stepping onto a mat. "Oh, you're serious," Derek said, straightening up, still grinning. But his grin had a new edge to it, a flicker of irritation that things weren't unfolding the way he'd scripted them. Fine. You want a lesson? Come on, come learn something." He gestured grandly at the mat. "Bow in, sweetheart. Let's see if your mommy taught you any manners." Maya stepped to the edge of the tatami. She paused. and then she bowed, a real bow from the waist, slow and full. The kind of ray that takes a year of correction to learn and a lifetime to mean. Daniel's stomach dropped. She stepped onto the mat. The firm give of the tatami under her bare feet was familiar, almost like coming home. She walked to the center, and as she did, her right hand rose unconsciously to her collarbone, where, beneath her t-shirt, a small worn medal hung on a frayed blue ribbon. She pressed it once through the fabric, then she let her hand fall. She closed her eyes and took 3 slow breaths. In through the nose, hold. Out through the mouth, in, hold. Out, in, hold, out. It was the breath her grandfather had taught her. The one he said came before everything, before the strike, before the block, before the bow itself. First, you find the still place, he used to say. The fight is already won or lost in the breath. Everything after is just paperwork. When Maya opened her eyes, she was somewhere else, and Derek Stone was about to meet a girl who didn't exist a moment ago. But before the first strike, you should understand the promise. Because the promise is the whole story. 3 years earlier, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Maya had stood in her grandfather's small, neat backyard, 10 years old, sweat dripping off the end of her nose. Frank Coleman was 68 then, his hair gone white, his hands marked with the kind of scars that come from a life nobody asks about. Set. He had set up a wooden striking post against the fence, wrapped in old rope, and Maya had been hitting it until her knuckles ached and the rope had worn smooth where her fists kept landing. The whole yard smelled of cut grass and the lemonade sweating on the porch rail, and somewhere a neighbor's wind chime turned lazily in the warm air. "Stop," Frank had said. "Come sit." She'd sat with him on the back step, and he'd handed her a glass of lemonade, the cold of it shocking against her hot palms. And for a while, they just watched the clouds drift over the fence line. "You're getting good," he finally said. "Faster than I was at your age. Maybe faster than I ever was." Maya had glowed. "Really, really?" "Which is why we need to talk." He'd set down his glass and looked at her with those pale, level eyes. The ones that always seemed to see a half second into the future. Power that comes easy to a person is the most dangerous thing in the world, Maya. "You know why? Because I could hurt someone." "No." He'd shaken his head slowly. "Because it's fun. It feels good to be the strongest person in the room. It feels good to win. And the day it stops scaring you to win, that's the day you become the kind of man I spent half my life cleaning up after." He'd reached into his shirt then and pulled out the medal on the frayed blue ribbon. He'd won it long ago, a national title in his weight class, back when he was young and hungry and stupid, he said. He'd taken it off and looped it over Maya's head, and it had hung heavy and warm against her chest, still carrying the heat of his body. "This isn't yours because you won anything," he'd told her. "It's yours so you remember what it's for. I want you to make me a promise. You don't fight to be the strongest. You don't fight to win. You don't fight to show off ever, to anyone. You fight for exactly one reason: to stand between someone who can't protect themselves and the person trying to hurt them. You're a shield, not a sword." "Say it back to me." "I'm a shield," Maya had said. "Not a sword." "Good girl." He'd squeezed her shoulder with one scarred hand. "And one more thing, nobody needs to know what you can do. The strongest person in the room is the one nobody's looking at. You keep this quiet, you keep it small. You only let it out when there's no other way to keep someone safe. Promise me." "I promise, Grandpa." He'd died 8 months later. And Maya had kept the promise for 3 years, training alone in the early mornings, telling no one, winning a junior national title quietly under a club name nobody connected to the small girl who sat in the back of her classes. And then never going back to defend it because the trophy had started to feel too good, and her grandfather's voice had whispered in her ear, and she'd walked away from the whole circuit before it could become a sword. She had kept the promise. Until tonight. Back in the present, on the mat, Maya let the memory go with her last slow breath. Her mother was watching her with terror in her eyes. Daniel was watching her with something closer to dawning awe. And Derek Stone was rolling his shoulders, cracking his neck, grinning like a man about to do a magic trick he'd done 100 times. "Last chance," Derek said. "Walk away." "Apologize to my mother," Maya answered. "Have it your way." Derek dropped into his fighting stance, a good stance, a real one, weight balanced, hands up, chin tucked. For all his cruelty, the man could fight. He'd earned the belt the hard way once, before the ego ate him. I'll keep it gentle, mostly. And then he attacked. It was his signature opening, the one he'd put a dozen tournament opponents to sleep with, a fast lead jab to draw the guard up, followed by a thunderous rear roundhouse kick aimed at the body, the kind of kick that drives the air out of a grown man's lungs and folds him in half. It came at her at full speed. He didn't go gentle. Whatever he'd said, somewhere in the back of his mind, the sight of the small girl's defiance had nicked his pride, and the kick that came was meant to end it in one motion. The jab snapped toward Maya's face. It didn't land. She wasn't there. It wasn't a dramatic dodge. There was no leap, no flinch, no scramble. Just as the punch was about to connect, she shifted her weight to the ball of one foot and let her head drift 2 inches to the side. The fist passed her cheek close enough to feel the warmth of it. And in the same heartbeat, as the roundhouse kick came whistling in toward her ribs, she simply wasn't standing where her ribs had been. A small pivot, a turn of the hips. The kick swept through empty air with a sound like a snapped towel, and the momentum of it carried Derek a quarter step off his line. He stumbled, just half a step. But the man hadn't been made to stumble in his own dojo in years. The room made no sound at all. It is hard to describe to someone who has never trained how strange that moment was. A man like Derek doesn't miss a kick at full power against a stationary target. The kick is the easy part. The whole art is built on the assumption that if you commit fully and accurately, the target will be where you aimed. And the target hadn't been. The girl hadn't blocked anything, hadn't even seemed to defend. She had simply made his strikes irrelevant, the way water makes a fist irrelevant. There is nothing more disorienting to a trained fighter than an opponent who refuses to be hit and refuses to hit back. It breaks the rhythm the whole system is built on. Daniel's water bottle slipped from his fingers and clattered on the floor, rolling in a slow arc until it bumped the base of the mirror. Nobody looked at it. Nobody could look at anything but the small girl standing relaxed in the center of the mat, her hands not even fully raised, her breathing slow and even, as though she'd done nothing more strenuous than step around a puddle. "Lucky," Derek muttered, resetting. But the grin was gone now. His jaw had set and a vein had risen at his temple. "Stand still." "Why would I do that?" Maya asked. There was no taunt in it. It was a genuine question, almost kind, the way you'd ask a confused child. Derek came again, faster this time, abandoning the showmanship. A 3-punch combination, jab, cross, hook, meant to back her into the mirror and corner her where she'd have no room to slip away. It was good boxing. It was clean and committed and exactly what he'd drilled 10,000 times. Maya read it like a sentence she'd already finished. She slipped the jab. She rolled under the cross, the punch passing over the crown of her head. And when the hook came around, the big one, the finisher, she stepped into it inside the arc, so that the heavy part of his arm wrapped harmlessly around her shoulders, and his face was suddenly inches from hers, and she was looking up at him with those calm, dark eyes. "Your movements are too wide," she said quietly, almost gently, the way her grandfather used to correct her. "You telegraph everything with your shoulders." "I knew the hook was coming before you did." Then she stepped back out of his reach, light as a thought. Derek staggered, off balance, swinging at a girl who was already 3 feet away. A low murmur ran through the empty edges of the room. Daniel, and now 2 students who had stopped in the doorway on their way out, drawn back by the silence that wasn't supposed to be there. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. The cleaning lady's kid was teaching. One of the students in the doorway, a young woman, a brown belt, 3 years of hard training under her own belt, felt her skin prickle. She had spent those 3 years learning to read movement, to see the small tells that separate a trained body from an untrained one. And what she was watching scrambled everything she thought she knew. The girl's footwork was flawless. Not good for a kid flawless. Flawless. Her weight never committed too far in any direction. Her hands returned to guard along the shortest possible path. She wasn't reacting to Derek's attacks. She was reading them before they fully formed and simply not being where they arrived. That wasn't talent. Talent is messy. This was training, deep, patient, brutal training. The kind that takes years, and a master who does not believe in praise. "Who is that?" the brown belt whispered. Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Something curdled in Derek's chest then. Not fear. He wasn't capable of admitting fear. Just a hot, blind humiliation, the worst feeling in the world for a man whose entire self was built on never feeling it. His face went dark red. His careful technique began to dissolve. He stopped fighting like a black belt and started fighting like a furious man, which is a very different and much worse thing. "I said," he snarled, "stand still." He lunged with everything he had, a wild, looping overhand right, the kind of haymaker that has no business in a trained fighter's arsenal, the kind you throw when the trained fighter has left the building and only the ego remains. He put his whole body into it. He meant to take her head off. For one terrible second, Linda screamed her daughter's name, and Maya moved. She didn't retreat. That was the thing Daniel would remember for the rest of his life, that when the biggest, most dangerous strike of the entire fight came roaring in, the girl moved toward it. Her left hand shot up, open-palmed, and met Derek's descending forearm at the wrist. Deflecting it just enough, just past her ear, redirecting all that committed weight into empty space. At the exact same instant, her right hand moved. It was a blur, low and fast and tight, nothing like his wide swings, economy itself. She didn't aim for his face, she didn't aim for his chest. She drove the heel of her palm and the stiffened ridge of her fingers into a single precise point, just beneath his ribcage, where the soft hollow sits below the breastbone, the solar plexus. The strike landed with a sound that wasn't loud. It was sharp and final, like a dry branch snapping clean. Derek's stone froze. His entire body went rigid. The fury drained out of his face all at once, replaced by something Maya had seen exactly once before, on a striking dummy that her grandfather had hit just so to show her what this point did. Derek's eyes went wide and round and white at the edges. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. Every muscle that runs the lungs had locked, just for a moment, just long enough. Maya stepped back, calm, her bare feet whispering on the tatami, and lowered her hands. Derek's knees buckled. He went down, not flat but folding, sinking to his knees in the center of his own mat, both hands clutching his middle, his breath finally returning in a long, ragged, wheezing gasp. He knelt there in front of his trophies, beneath the photographs of the champions he'd spent his life trying to join, and he could not get up. The room was so silent that the buzz of the fluorescent lights sounded like a swarm. Maya looked around the room, slowly, at the 2 students frozen in the doorway, at Daniel with his mouth open, at her mother with both hands pressed to her face. "Does anyone else," she asked, in that same flat, quiet voice, "want a lesson?" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Maya turned, walked to the edge of the mat, bowed once more, that same full, slow re, because the ritual is the ritual no matter who's watching, and stepped off. She picked up her sneakers. She picked up her backpack. She walked to her mother and took her hand. "Come on, Mom," she said softly. "Let's go home." And they walked out into the night, leaving Derek Stone kneeling on his own floor, in front of an audience for the first time in his life that was not laughing. Let me pause here for a moment. Whenever I share one of these, I hope it gives you a chance to step out of the everyday and just drift for a bit. I'd love to know what you are doing while listening. Maybe relaxing after work, on a late-night drive, or just winding down. Drop a line in the comments. I really do read them all. And let me ask you something while we're here. If you were in Maya's place, watching someone humiliate your parent in front of a room full of strangers, would you have stepped onto that mat, or would you have walked away? I'm genuinely curious. Tell me below. Now, here's the thing about a man like Derek Stone. You cannot wound the body of a man like that and expect it to be over. You can only wound his pride, and pride, when it's all a man has, does not heal. It festers. That night should have been the end of it. Maya had defended her mother. Justice of a rough kind had been served on the mat. In a better world, Derek would have woken the next morning, taken a hard look in the mirror, and become a quieter, smaller, more honest man. The world is not better. It started 2 days later. Linda showed up for her morning shift at the medical office she cleaned across town, her other job, the one that paid the rent while the academy job paid the groceries, and the office manager met her at the door, awkward, apologetic, not quite meeting her eyes. "Linda, I'm so sorry. We've had a complaint about your work. And honestly, some other things I'm not comfortable repeating. We're going to have to let you go." "A complaint? From who? I've cleaned this office for 2 years. You've never..." "I'm sorry, I really am. There were some calls. There would be a lot of calls." Over the next 10 days, Linda Coleman lost everything she built. The academy fired her, of course. That was the first to go. The very next morning, Derek calling her at 6 a.m. to tell her in a low, satisfied voice that her services would no longer be required and that he'd be letting the community know what kind of people she and her daughter were. But it didn't stop at the academy. The medical office, the 2 private homes she cleaned on weekends, a part-time shift at a diner she'd just picked up. One by one, they all called, all apologetic, all citing complaints and concerns we've heard and calls we've received, none of them able or willing to say from whom. Linda knew from whom. Derek hadn't just spread the story, he'd weaponized it. To anyone who would listen. And a man who runs the most popular dojo in 3 counties has a lot of ears available to him. He told a tale of an unstable cleaning woman whose feral child had attacked him, unprovoked, in his own place of business. He'd put it online, on the local community forum, where everyone in town traded recommendations for plumbers and warnings about scammers. "Beware," his post read. "This woman and her daughter are dangerous. The girl assaulted me. I'm pressing charges. Do not let them into your home or near your children." And the town, which did not know Linda, which had never had a reason to think about her at all, simply believed the black belt with the trophies and the respected business over the invisible woman who scrubbed their floors at night. There was one moment, in the middle of all of it, that Maya would never forget. She'd gone with her mother to the grocery store. They still had to eat, even with the money running out, and in the cereal aisle, a woman Linda had cleaned house for, a woman Linda had trusted with the key to her home for over a year, saw them coming and physically pulled her cart around to go down a different aisle. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The way she clutched her purse a little tighter, the way she steered her child to the far side of the cart, said everything. Linda's face didn't change. She just kept her eyes on the shelf and picked out the cheapest box. And Maya watched her mother absorb the insult the way she'd absorbed 1,000 others, silently, with a dignity that somehow made it worse. That night, Maya heard her mother crying in the bathroom with the fan on so the sound wouldn't carry. It carried anyway. This was the rumor engine running at full speed. It had an instigator, Derek, and that cocky blue belt student of his, a young man named Trevor, the one who'd lowered his water bottle, who now told anyone who'd listen that he'd seen the whole thing and that the girl had blindsided Sensei with a cheap shot. Trevor was the kind of student who'd absorbed all of Derek's worst qualities and none of his discipline, and he relished his role as the official witness, embellishing the story a little more each time he told it, until in his final version, the girl had attacked Derek from behind with a hidden weapon. It had its amplifiers, the forum, the shares, the screenshots, the half-dozen students who repeated it because their teacher had said it, and you don't question your teacher. And soon it would reach the authorities because Derek had filed a police report, and a detective had been assigned, and a woman who had never so much as gotten a parking ticket in her life was now, somewhere in a county database, a person of interest in an assault. At home in the small apartment with the leaking faucet, Linda sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bills and a stack of nothing to pay them with. And for the first time, Maya could remember, her mother cried where she could see her. "We're going to lose the apartment," Linda whispered. "First of the month is in 11 days. I can't make rent. I can't get a job because he's poised this whole town against us. I don't know what we're going to do, baby." And Maya, sitting across from her, felt the full weight of what she had done. She had broken the promise. Not the part about protecting her mother. She'd kept that part. The part she'd broken was the quiet. "Nobody needs to know what you can do," her grandfather had said. "You keep it small. You keep it quiet." And she hadn't. She'd stepped onto a mat in front of an audience, and she'd let the secret out. And now the secret had hands, and the hands were tightening around her mother's throat. That night, lying awake in the dark, Maya pulled the metal out from under her shirt and held it in her fist until the edges bit into her palm. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she whispered to the ceiling. "I made it worse. I made everything worse." Her grandfather did not answer, because the dead don't answer. But she could hear him anyway, the way you can always hear the people who raised you long after they're gone. His name was Frank Coleman. To the town, to the neighbors, to the kids he'd waved at from his porch for 30 years. He had been a quiet man, a retired locksmith with a tidy yard and a habit of fixing things for free. That was the man everyone saw. But before all of that, before the porch and the lemonade and the granddaughter he loved more than his own life, he had been Sergeant First Class Frank Coleman, a member of a small, specialized unit whose name still didn't appear in any public record. The kind of soldier who is sent into rooms that no one will ever be told about, to do things that no one will ever be told about, and who comes home and never speaks of any of it. He had learned to fight not for sport but for survival, in a tradition that did not care about trophies and had no patience for theater. The martial art he carried wasn't a single discipline you could name. It was a brutal, efficient synthesis built by men whose lives depended on ending a confrontation in a single movement and then walking away as if nothing had happened. There were no wide swings in what Frank knew, no telegraphing, no wasted motion. Every strike was economy. Every block was already a counter. And underneath all of it, the philosophy he'd hammered into Maya year after year. The most dangerous person is the most controlled person. Anger is a leak. Ego is a leak. The fight is won in the breath, before it ever begins. He used to drill her on the strangest things. Not just how to hit, but how to not hit. How to read the moment when a confrontation could still be talked down. How to make herself look smaller and softer than she was so that no one would ever think to test her. How to walk out of a room full of dangerous men without a single one of them remembering her face. Anyone can learn to throw a punch, he'd say. It takes a real person to learn when not to. The ones who get hurt aren't the weak ones. They're the ones who couldn't resist proving they were strong. He taught her to find the still place under pressure, to slow her own heartbeat with her breath when everything in her wanted to panic, to make decisions from that still place instead of from fear or pride. The morning he taught her the solar plexus strike, the very one she'd used on Derek. He'd made her practice it 1,000 times on the wrapped post, and then he'd sat her down and made her swear she would never, ever use it on a living person unless someone she loved was in danger and there was no other way. This isn't a tool for winning, he'd told her, his pale eyes deadly serious. It's a tool for stopping. There's a difference, and if you ever forget it, put your hands in your pockets and walk away forever. He had won that national title as a young man, before the service, and he'd hated what it did to him, how good it felt, how it made him want to be looked at, how the cheering crowd had felt like a drug he could have spent his whole life chasing. He'd seen where that road led for the men around him, the ones who'd needed the spotlight so badly that they'd started picking fights just to feel it again. He'd walked off that road and never looked back. When he finally taught Maya, decades later, he taught her the whole thing, the deadly efficiency and the leash that had to go around it. He gave her the medal not as a trophy, but as a leash, a reminder of what the skill was for. And now Maya lay in the dark and understood with the clarity of grief exactly what her grandfather had been trying to protect her from. Not the danger of the skill, the danger of the attention, because a sword in a quiet hand harms no one. It's only when the world finds out you have it that the world starts trying to take it from you, or break the people you love to punish you for having it. But somewhere in the dark, beneath the guilt, another of her grandfather's lessons surfaced. When you're trapped, he used to say, don't fight the trap, make the trap fight itself. The strongest move is almost never the one they're expecting. It's the one where you let them keep doing the thing that's already destroying them, and you just make sure everyone's watching when it does. Maya sat up in bed. She had been thinking about this all wrong. She'd been thinking she had to fight Derek, and Derek was good at fighting. Fighting was his whole world. But Derek wasn't winning because he was strong. Derek was winning because he controlled the story. He had the megaphone, and the reputation, and the benefit of the doubt. And he was using all three to bury a woman who couldn't say a word in her own defense. The mistake, Maya realized, was meeting him where he was strong. On the mat, she could beat him. She already had. But the mat wasn't where the real fight was happening. The real fight was happening in 1,000 small conversations across town, in screenshots and shares and whispered warnings, and there was no strike in the world that could win that one. You can't punch a rumor. You can only let it run far enough that it trips over its own feet. And that was the thing about Derek. He never knew when to stop. A careful man would have spread the story and then gone quiet, let it do its work. But Derek wasn't careful because being careful would have meant admitting he could be caught, and he had never once been caught. He had to keep talking. He had to keep winning. He had to be the loudest voice in every room, including the rooms made of glass and text, where every word is saved forever. So Maya wouldn't fight the story. She'd let Derek tell it, and then she'd make sure the whole town was watching when the story turned out to be a lie. The next morning, she went to find Daniel. It wasn't hard. Daniel still trained at the academy, he had nowhere else to go, and a tournament he'd been preparing for half a year. But he'd grown quieter and grimmer there, and when Maya found him at the bus stop outside the strip mall, she could see that the thing he'd witnessed had been eating at him too. "You shouldn't be here," he said, glancing around. "He's got everyone convinced you're some kind of—" "I know what he's got everyone convinced of," Maya said. "He's getting my mom fired from every job she has. We're going to lose our home. I need your help." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. He was 18, and the easy thing, the safe thing, would have been to keep his head down, finish his tournament, let it all blow over. He'd spent 2 years learning from Derek to keep his head down, but he'd also spent 2 years watching Derek tear people apart for sport, and he'd hated himself a little more every time he'd said "Yes, sensei," and looked away. That night, Daniel said slowly, "What I saw you do, that wasn't the Academy's style. That wasn't any tournament style. The deflection and strike, the way you went inside the haymaker instead of away from it, the solar plexus shot. I've read about that. That's combatives. Military close quarters." "Who taught you that?" "My grandfather," Maya said. "He's gone now. He made me promise to keep it quiet. I broke the promise to protect my mom, and now she's paying for it. So I'm done being quiet. Will you help me or not?" Daniel thought about Derek's voice in his ear. "Are you a real fighter, or are you wasting my time?" He thought about all the times he'd stood by the equipment rack and watched Derek tear someone apart and said nothing. He thought about the small, sick feeling he carried home after every class, the one he'd learned to ignore. And he thought about this 13-year-old girl standing in front of him at a bus stop, having already done the one thing he'd never had the courage to do: stand between Derek and someone weaker than him. "What do you need me to do?" he said. Here is what Maya understood that Derek did not. A man who has gotten away with cruelty for years stops being careful. He stops believing he can be caught because he never has been. And a man who believes he can't be caught will say anything, do anything, right out in the open, because the open has only ever rewarded him. Her grandfather had a word for this kind of opponent. He called him a man in love with his own reach. A fighter like that, he'd explained, throws everything as hard as he can, commits fully every time, because committing fully has always worked. And the way you beat him isn't to be stronger. It's to do exactly what Maya had done on the mat: step inside the swing. Let all that committed force carry him past you, and let his own momentum put him on the floor. The bigger the swing, the harder the fall. Derek's cruelty was a haymaker. All Maya had to do was make sure he kept throwing it until he overbalanced, and then make sure the whole town was watching when he did. So all you have to do is be there quietly when he does it and press record. For the next 9 nights, Daniel did exactly that. He still went to class. He still bowed and drilled and said, "Yes, sensei." But now he stayed late, the way he'd always stayed late. And he started paying very close attention to Derek's after-hours phone calls. The ones Derek made from his office with the door half open, his voice carrying out into the empty hall. Certain that the only person around was a teenage student too cowed to matter. It was nerve-wracking work. Daniel would linger at the equipment rack long after the others had gone, pretending to retape a pair of gloves, pretending to drill a kata in the corner, his heart hammering so loudly in his own ears that he was sure Derek would hear it through the office wall. He kept his phone low against his hip, the screen dimmed, the lens just clearing the edge of the doorframe. One wrong move, one creak of the floor, one glance up at the wrong moment, and he'd be finished. Derek would know. And Daniel had seen what Derek did to people who crossed him in small ways. He could only imagine what the man would do to someone who crossed him in a large one. But night after night, Derek made it easy. The arrogance that had made him dangerous now made him careless. He never once thought to close the door. Why would he? He owned the room. He owned the building. He owned, as far as he was concerned, the entire town. On the second night, Daniel heard Derek call a restaurant where Linda had applied for a dishwashing job and, in a voice dripping with false civic concern, warn the owner that the applicant was an unstable woman with a violent child and a pending criminal case. "I just thought you should know," Derek said, in the warm, reasonable tone of a good neighbor doing a good deed. "I'd hate for something to happen." Daniel filmed it through the cracked door. Derek's reflection clear in the dark glass of the office window. His words clear in the quiet, the date and time stamped automatically in the corner of the footage. On the fourth night, he heard Derek call the apartment's leasing office, pretending to be a concerned neighbor, urging them to look into the family in Unit 4B, hinting at noise, at instability, at danger to the other tenants. Daniel filmed that too. On the sixth night, the worst night, he heard Derek brag to Trevor, the cocky blue belt, about how he was going to run those two out of town by the end of the month. Daniel stood frozen behind the rack with his phone up while Derek laughed and said that nobody crosses him, that the woman should have stayed on her knees where she belonged, that the kid had embarrassed him and the kid's mother was going to pay the bill. Trevor laughed along, said something about how it served them right. Daniel got every word. His hands were shaking by the end, and not from fear anymore. On the ninth night, he had enough. Phone calls, brags, dates, times. The office window reflecting a man who genuinely believed he was alone in the world and accountable to no one. Daniel saved it all in 3 different places, the way you save something you cannot afford to lose. And then he sat in his car in the dark parking lot and breathed for a long time before he called Maya. And while Daniel collected, Maya built the trap. She didn't post a single accusation. That was the genius of it, the thing her grandfather would have understood in an instant. An accusation invites an argument, and Derek was better at arguing than she would ever be. Instead, on the community forum where Derek had spread his poison, under the original post that had branded her mother dangerous, Maya created a new account and posted something very simple and very quiet. I clean offices in this town to support my daughter. I have never harmed anyone in my life. I don't know how to defend myself against the things being said about me online, and I've lost 4 jobs in 2 weeks. If anyone reading this is willing to give an honest woman an honest chance, I'd be grateful. A neighbor, no names, no accusations. Just a small, dignified plea from the woman the whole story was supposedly about. Maya wrote it the way her mother actually talked, humble, no drama, no anger, and she posted it and she waited. She was betting everything on one thing, that Derek would not be able to leave it alone. He couldn't. Within hours, Derek, posting under his own name, his real name, the proud owner of Apex Martial Arts who had no idea he was being baited, replied beneath it, and he did exactly what a man who's never been caught always does. He overreached. He couldn't just let the quiet posts sit. He had to win the thread. He had to dominate it. He posted publicly for the whole town to read. Everyone in this town knows who this neighbor really is. This is the woman whose daughter assaulted me. She's lying right now to manipulate you. I have never contacted any of her employers. That's a paranoid fantasy. I'm a respected business owner and I would never stoop to that. The truth is this family is dangerous and I'm protecting all of you. Don't fall for the sob story. I have never contacted any of her employers. He'd written it himself, in public, under his own name, with a timestamp. Maya read it 3 times, and for the first time in 2 weeks, something in her chest loosened. She called Daniel, he took the bait. He said it in writing. He said he never contacted any of her employers. There was a silence on the line. Then Daniel, very quietly, I've got him calling 4 employers on video. With dates, then it's time. They didn't do it cruelly. Maya thought a long time about that, about whether to humiliate Derek the way he'd humiliated her mother, to make it a spectacle, to enjoy it. Her grandfather's voice stopped her. You're a shield, not a sword. The day winning stops scaring you is the day you become the thing you're fighting. So she kept it clean. Daniel made one careful post on the community forum beneath Derek's denial. He didn't editorialize. He didn't call names. He simply wrote, "You said you never contacted her employers. Here's the night of the 14th. And he attached the video. Then, and the 16th, Another video. And the 19th. And the 21st. 4 videos. Derek's own voice. Derek's own reflection in his own office window. Derek warning a restaurant owner. Derek calling a leasing office pretending to be a concerned neighbor. Derek, in his own words, dated and time-stamped, doing the exact thing he had just sworn to the entire town that he would never do. And then Daniel added one last line, the only one with any heat in it, and it was the truth. I'm one of his students. I've watched him do this kind of thing to people for 2 years. I'm done watching. The post went up at 9 in the evening. By midnight, it had been shared 400 times. By the next morning, the whole town had seen the man behind the trophies. The forum that had condemned Linda turned in a single night. People who had repeated Derek's story now scrolled back through their own comments in shame. Some of them deleting what they'd written, some of them leaving it up and adding apologies beneath it. The woman from the grocery store, the one who'd steered her cart away, found Linda's quiet little post and wrote, simply, I am so sorry. I judged you when I had no right to. Please forgive me. The cocky blue belt Trevor, who'd sworn he'd seen the whole thing, went very quiet, and then his account vanished altogether. 3 of Derek's adult students canceled their memberships before lunch. A mother who'd been about to enroll her 2 kids posted the 4 videos to a parents group with a single word. No, it spread the way these things spread, faster than anyone could control. Carried on the particular fury people feel when they realize they've been used. The town had been made into a weapon against an innocent woman, and now that it understood that it was angry, and it turned that anger exactly where it belonged. And then the authorities, who had moved so quickly to take Derek's report seriously, found themselves looking at something else entirely. The detective who'd been assigned the assault case against a 13-year-old girl watched the 4 videos, then made a few calls, then closed that case and opened a different one, harassment. Filing a false police report, recidation. There were, it turned out, laws about systematically destroying someone's livelihood with lies. And there were laws about lying to police. And a man who'd been so confident the system would protect him discovered that the system, when shown the truth, did not actually belong to him after all. Linda Coleman got her jobs back. It happened almost as fast as she'd lost them, and somehow that was the part that broke her. The medical office called first, the manager nearly in tears on the phone, asking her to please come back, saying she should never have listened to those calls, that she was so sorry. Then the weekend homes, then the diner. Within a week, Linda had more work than she'd had before, because the town, ashamed of how easily it had believed the worst about an invisible woman, now went out of its way to make it right. The restaurant that had turned her away for a dishwashing shift offered her a manager track position. People who'd never noticed her now knew her name. Strangers stopped her on the street to apologize. A few of them stopped to thank her, too, for raising a daughter brave enough to expose a man they'd all been too comfortable to question. Linda found it overwhelming. All of it. The attention after a lifetime of invisibility was its own strange weight. But there was a morning about 2 weeks in, when she stood in the medical office she'd cleaned for 2 years, alone in the early dark before anyone arrived, and she caught her own reflection in a window and stood up a little straighter than she had in years. The work was the same. The mop was the same. But she carried it differently now because she finally understood something it had taken her 47 years to learn, that there had never been anything small about her. The world had simply never bothered to look. Her daughter had made it look. And Derek Stone left town, not in a single dramatic exit. It was slower and more total than that, the kind of leaving that happens when a man's entire kingdom dissolves around him, one membership at a time. The students drifted away. The lease on the strip mall unit, which he'd been so proud of, became a noose once the income stopped. The harassment charges and the false report charges followed him through the courts, in a slow grind that emptied his savings and his reputation in equal measure. Within 3 months, the Apex Martial Arts Academy was a dark unit with paper over the windows and a for-lease sign in the door. And Derek had moved 2 states away to a town where, for now, nobody had seen the videos. The trophies, presumably, went with him. They had never meant anything anyway. As for Daniel, the quiet student who'd finally stopped looking away, something in him changed in the weeks after. For 2 years, he'd believed that staying silent was the same as staying safe, that keeping his head down was wisdom and not cowardice. The night he posted those 4 videos, with his real name attached, knowing it would mean walking away from the only dojo he'd ever trained at, he'd discovered that he'd been wrong about which one of those was the brave choice. He didn't regret it. He told Maya later that it was the first thing he'd done in years that he could look at without flinching. He found a new place to train, eventually, a small, unglamorous club run by an old woman who didn't believe in trophies and reminded him, in the strangest way, of stories Maya had told him about her grandfather. He went on to win his tournament, the one he'd spent half a year preparing for. He didn't tell many people. He'd learned, watching a 13-year-old girl, that the people who most need you to know how strong they are usually aren't. It would be easy to end the story there. The villain defeated, the family restored, the town corrected. But that's not where it ended, because Maya was not the kind of person who could simply enjoy a victory. She was her grandfather's granddaughter, and her grandfather had taught her that the most important conversation always comes after the fight. A few nights after Derek's academy went dark, Maya sat on the edge of her bed in the small apartment, the medal in her hands, turning it over and over. Linda found her there. She sat down beside her daughter and waited, the way she'd learned to wait for Maya to find her words. "I broke my promise, Mom," Maya finally said, not looking up. "Grandpa told me to keep it quiet. He said the most dangerous thing wasn't the fighting, it was people finding out. He said keep it small, keep it hidden, only ever use it as a shield. And I did use it as a shield, but I didn't keep it hidden. I let everyone see. And then everything fell apart and you almost lost everything, and it was my fault because I broke the promise. I made you a target, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." For a long moment, Linda didn't say anything. Then she reached over and gently took the medal from Maya's hands, holding it up so the small, worn surface caught the light from the bedside lamp. "Let me tell you something about your grandfather," Linda said quietly. "I knew that man for 50 years. He was my father. And the thing you have to understand about Frank Coleman is that he wasn't afraid of the fighting. He was afraid of what fighting did to people. He'd seen men get drunk on it, on winning, on being feared, on being looked at. He spent his whole life trying to make sure that never happened to you. That's what the promise was really about. Not hiding, humility. He wanted you to be strong without needing anyone to know it. He wanted you to be able to walk away." She turned the medal over in her fingers. "But baby, he never, not once, wanted you to be able to walk away from me." Maya looked up. "You think you broke his promise?" Linda went on. "You didn't. You think the promise was stay hidden no matter what. It wasn't. The promise was be a shield, not a sword. And that night, when that man was standing over me, when he was making me feel like I was nothing, like I was furniture, like the kind of person who exists only to clean up after better people, you didn't pick up a sword. You didn't do it to win. You didn't do it to be looked at. You were protecting me. You were being a shield." Her voice broke. "You were being exactly what he made you to be. The only thing you got wrong was that the shield got noticed, and the world is the one that did the rest. Not you." Maya's eyes filled. "And the part after?" Linda said, smiling now through her tears. "The part where you didn't fight Derek with your fists. Where you sat in the dark and figured out how to let his own lie destroy him. Where you got it all done without ever throwing another punch. That's the part that would have made your grandfather proudest of all. Because that's a person who's truly learned that the strongest move isn't the strike. You won the second fight in the breath, baby, before it even started, just like he taught you. She pressed the metal back into Maya's hand and closed the girl's fingers around it. You didn't break his promise, she whispered. You finally understood it. Maya cried then, the way you cry when you've been holding something up alone for a long time and someone finally helps you set it down. And her mother held her in the small apartment with the leaking faucet that they would, after all, get to keep. The town never forgot the story, though most of them only ever knew the surface of it, the dramatic version. The cleaner's kid who put the bully on the floor. What they didn't know was the quieter sequel, because in the months that followed, Maya started doing something she'd never imagined she would do. She started teaching. Not in a fancy academy with trophies on the wall. In the community center, on a few thin mats donated by a youth program, 2 evenings a week, free of charge. She taught the kids nobody else paid attention to, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones who got pushed into lockers, the ones who flinched when a hand moved too fast near their faces. The first week, only 3 kids came. The second week, 7. By the end of the second month, there were more than 20, and Linda had to start bringing folding chairs for the parents who wanted to watch. Maya didn't teach them flashy kicks or tournament combinations. She taught them how to stand, how to find the still place in the breath before the fear could take over, how to plant their feet and square their shoulders and look a bully in the eye and say no in a voice that didn't shake, because she'd learned, watching her own mother, that the first and most important fight is the one where you simply refuse to be made small. She taught them the breath first, always the breath. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. The fight is won here, she'd tell them, touching her own chest, before anyone throws anything. If you can stay calm when everything wants you to panic, you've already won the part that matters. She taught them to walk away whenever they could. She taught them that walking away wasn't losing. She made them practice it. Practice turning their backs and leaving until the boys who'd come in wanting to learn how to hit understood that the hardest, strongest thing a person can do is choose not to. And only then, last of all, did she teach them how to defend themselves, slowly and carefully, with the same warning her grandfather had given her wrapped around every single technique. The strongest person in the room, she would tell them. Repeating the words she'd carried her whole life is almost never the loudest. It's the one nobody's looking at, the one who could end it any second and chooses not to. You're not learning this so you can hurt someone. You're learning this so that no one can ever make you feel like furniture again. You're a shield, you understand? Say it back to me. We're shields, the kids would chant, ragged and giggling and earnest. Not swords. Good, Maya would say. And she would smile, and somewhere, she was certain, an old soldier with a tidy yard and a glass of lemonade was smiling too. There was one girl in particular, a small, watchful 8-year-old named Rosa, who reminded Maya painfully of herself, who came in flinching and left, by spring, walking a little taller. One evening, Rosa's mother pulled Maya aside, eyes wet, and told her that Rosa had stood up to the kids who'd been tormenting her at school for a year, had done it calmly, had done it without throwing a single punch, had simply refused to be afraid anymore. And the tormentors hadn't known what to do with a child who wasn't afraid. "I don't know what you did," the woman said, "but you gave me my daughter back." Maya thought about that for a long time. She thought it might be the closest she'd ever come to understanding what her grandfather had felt all those years, fixing things for free on a quiet street where nobody knew what his hands had once been capable of. On the wall of that little community center room, the only decoration Maya ever put up was a single photograph. It was a picture of an old man in his backyard, white-haired, squinting in the sun, his hand resting on the shoulder of a small girl holding a wooden striking post. There were no trophies in the picture. There was no audience, just a grandfather and a granddaughter, and the quiet work of becoming strong enough not to need anyone to notice. And around the girl's neck, if you looked closely, you could just make out a small worn medal hanging on a frayed blue ribbon. Linda hung the photograph herself, the first evening of the first class. She stepped back, looked at it, and rested her hand for a moment over her own heart. "He'd have liked this," she said. "Yeah," Maya answered, lining up the kid's shoes neatly against the wall, the way she always did, the way she always would. He would. That's the thing about real strength. It was never about how hard Maya could strike, or how perfectly Derek could tie his belt, or how many trophies lined a shelf under a row of fluorescent lights. The black belt picked the easy opponent because he believed strength was something you could see, something you could measure in size and titles and the fear in other people's eyes. He never understood that the most dangerous person in any room is the quiet one who has nothing to prove. He learned it the hard way, the way men like that always do. Because true strength isn't about how hard you can strike. It's about how resiliently you can stand in the light, armed with nothing but the truth. Protecting the people who can't protect themselves, and being humble enough to set the sword down the moment the shield is no longer needed. And that's where we'll end the story for now. Whenever I share one of these, I hope it gives you a chance to step out of the everyday and just drift for a bit. I'd love to know what you were doing while listening. Maybe relaxing after work, on a late-night drive, or just winding down. Drop a line in the comments. I really do read them all. And if you want to make sure we cross paths again, hitting like and subscribing makes a huge difference. We are always trying to improve our stories, so feel free to also drop your feedback in the comment section below. Thanks for spending this time with me. If this story moved you, write medal in the comments. This is a story from Underdog Dojo.